Hi, and welcome to Beacon Hill Update with Senator Jason Lewis. I'm Tom Dalton, the Senator's Communications Director here at the State House, and we're really excited to give you an update of lots of the different topics that are being discussed and debated and sometimes even made into law here on Beacon Hill. So, Senator, thanks for taking the time to film another episode of this show. As we're filming, it's the last week of February, and there's been a big change in state law that's probably going to affect a lot of the drivers in our communities. So do you want to lead off by talking a little bit about what's changed on the rules of the road this week?
Sure. Well, hi, Tom, and hi to everybody at home. Thanks very much for tuning in again for another edition of Beacon Hill Update. As Tom just mentioned, something that hopefully everybody's already aware of, but just to remind you, the new law that the state legislature passed last year and Governor Baker signed into law does require everybody to put their cell phones down when they are driving. We already had a law in place to prohibit texting or emailing while driving, but as we know, unfortunately that wasn't very effective, and we do have a big problem in our state with distracted driving, and that has contributed to a lot more accidents and unfortunately some fatalities as well. So the new law does require everybody to only use a phone in hands-free mode while driving. So you can't hold the phone at all. And the new law was effective as of yesterday, right. Sunday.
Right.
And there's a 1 month grace period. But after that, if you are pulled over for holding your phone and using it while driving, you could face a $100 fine, for the first violation, and then the fines do go up from there. So anyway, hopefully everybody knows it's unsafe to use a phone while driving, other than in hands-free mode, and hopefully everybody is going to put them away. Take a break, from your phone while you're in your car. Focus on the road, and let's make sure we keep everyone safe.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great example of a law that was passed just this legislative session, mm-hmm. and we're really excited to see it come into effect. Now, I know a major priority for the state Senate in this 2-year session, which we're in the second year of now, has been to make sure that every Massachusetts resident has access to quality and affordable health care. And as much as Massachusetts is a state that leads on healthcare, mm-hmm. it's still an issue that a lot of individuals and families in our district are grappling with on a regular basis. So can you talk a little bit about the work that's being done in the state Senate mm-hmm. to tackle healthcare affordability and access?
Sure, and everybody's probably well aware there's a lot of discussion going on at the national level and part of the presidential campaign about healthcare. And one of the things I'm really proud about living in Massachusetts is that for a long time, in our state, we have all agreed that everybody should be able to have access to the health care that they need. And this goes all the way back to what was it? They actually called it Romney Care at the right. time, but was a precursor to Obamacare, and was really designed to make sure that everybody has the insurance coverage and can get access to the health care that they need. We've been a long time leader. That said, we know there's still significant challenges that many patients and families and seniors are facing in terms of co-pays and deductibles and high premium rates, and sometimes even finding providers. So this is a very high priority for the state Senate, to improve the quality and the affordability and access to health care for everybody. And so the Senate has already acted by passing 2 very important and significant bills over the last few months. The first was legislation to contain pharmaceutical drug costs. We've seen, an explosive growth in the costs of pharmaceuticals, and these are, in many cases, life-saving drugs. But and a good example would be insulin.
Right.
But if somebody's suffering from diabetes, has trouble getting the insulin they need, has to ration the amount they use, or go get it in other places like Canada. That's crazy. So this legislation that the Senate passed is probably one of the strongest bills in the nation to really help to rein in high drug costs, prices and costs. So we're very hopeful that's going to continue to move forward in the legislative process. More recently, in fact, just a few weeks ago, the state Senate debated and passed with unanimous bipartisan support legislation designed to strengthen mental health care.
Right.
There already exists state and federal laws that require what's known as parity for mental health and physical health. But as I'm sure many of our viewers can attest, who have struggled to get for themselves or a loved one the mental health care they need, that unfortunately parity is not the case. Sometimes there are insurance barriers to getting mental health care. There can be barriers in finding a provider who can provide the care that someone needs. A lot of other challenges. So this new legislation that the Senate passed takes a number of different steps to strengthen access to quality, affordable mental health care and behavioral health care, because we fundamentally believe that everybody should get the care that they need, whether that's care for high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, stroke, or depression, schizophrenia, addiction. No matter what that is, everyone, healthcare should be a human right. Everybody should get access to it. So again, we're very excited about this new legislation. It's not a law yet, to improve mental health, and we're going to be continuing to advocate for that to move, hopefully, through the House of Representatives and have get signed into law by Governor Baker.
That's great, and I know that our office will make sure to keep our constituents and viewers informed about the progress of both of those really important pieces of legislation as the legislature continues its work this year. Now, I think probably coming in right after healthcare, one of the very most pressing issues for so many voters and especially young advocates around the state is climate change.
Yes.
And obviously we're in really what's a global climate crisis at this point. And I know that addressing climate change and also promoting the development of a green economy here in Massachusetts has been another big priority of the Massachusetts Senate. So could you speak a little bit about the major climate legislation that was taken up just about a month ago now?
Definitely. I'm glad you asked about that, because the climate change, the impact it's having on our communities, on our economy is an existential threat to our way of life. And although Massachusetts has been a leader among states in terms of working to get ourselves off of fossil fuels, and to encourage green renewable energy like solar and wind. For example, we're building some of the largest offshore wind farms right now that will exist anywhere in the country, even the world. So that's all good, but we know that we still have to do much more. And this is both to combat the climate change and slow down the effects, to be a leader, for other states and countries. It's also because we have a great opportunity to create a green economy where the offshore wind is a good example. By developing offshore wind farms, we're actually creating lots of new jobs, new business opportunities here in Massachusetts. So the green economy brings other benefits with it as well. And then the third thing we have to do also is start to prepare to be adapting to the impacts of climate change, things like flooding, more severe storms, and so on. So given all of that, this new legislation that the state Senate debated and passed very recently is the most, I believe, one of the most comprehensive and boldest pieces of legislation addressing climate change that we've seen anywhere in the country. The bill does a lot of things. I'll just mention a few. It sets a goal of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts getting to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. So that's a much more ambitious goal than the state currently has. And we would be, I believe, the first state to actually put that in law, that we have to meet that goal. And the bill creates interim goals and milestones to make sure we're on track to get to net zero emissions. The bill also will put in place carbon pricing mechanisms which most experts agree is probably the single most effective way to shift our economy off fossil fuels into clean energy, promote green jobs, and make this transition happen. So the legislation also includes that. There's a lot of other provisions in there as well to support low-income solar developments, greater energy efficiency, to support more electric vehicles, both cars and buses, to be rolled out in the years to come, and the infrastructure that needs to go with them. So we're very, very excited about this legislation. We really appreciate, as you said, a lot of our students who've been very active in talking to me and my colleagues about the need for this kind of legislation, and really all the activists in our communities who've been working so hard to put climate change front and center on the agenda.
That's great. And if we could hone in on one part of that very large climate legislative packet that you were talking about, I know one of the bills that was included in that package was actually a bill that you filed related to home appliance energy standards and efficiency standards. So could you speak a little bit about that legislation in particular?
Yeah, so I was very excited that as part of the essentially the package of legislation that the Senate took up and passed related to climate change, that included the bill that I had filed, working with the Green Energy Consumers Alliance and a number of other advocacy organizations. And it basically will update the energy and water standards for common appliances, household appliances and commercial appliances. And these are all products that are on the market already, but by putting these standards in place, just like we have fuel economy standards for cars and trucks, it's really a win-win, because not only does that mean it's good for the environment because we'll use less water and less energy, but it's also good for the pocketbooks of consumers and businesses, because we're going to save money by using less energy and less water. So I'm really pleased that this is included as part of this overall package that passed the Senate.
Terrific. Now, I know no discussion of climate change would be complete without talking about our transportation infrastructure. Yeah. And transportation's been a big topic in and around the Commonwealth for quite a while now, as many commuters in the greater Boston area know especially. We were really grateful that over 900 people replied to the survey that our office shared to ask for some information about the different ways that people interact with our transportation systems, including and especially public transit, but also our roads and highways, and how folks get around on a day-to-day basis. It was really valuable for us to hear from so many members of the public about how they're using our transportation systems and what they think needs to change. So we're really grateful for that. Anyone who wants to see a summary of the results of that survey can head to our website, senatorjasonlewis.com, or check it out on Facebook or Twitter. We've shared a presentation with a summary of the results, or you can always contact our office directly at jason.lewis@masenate.gov, and would love to share the results with you and continue to have a discussion about some of the things that we learned. So that was a really terrific exercise, and I think we learned a lot from all of the survey respondents. But it doesn't just stop with what people are saying about transportation, and I know that in the Senate there's been a lot of discussion, especially in the new year, about transportation. And so could you speak a little bit about what some of the legislative hopes are for the rest of the session?
Yeah, so this is another obviously hot button issue, both among our residents of our communities in the greater Boston area, as well as here in the legislature. I too want to echo what Tom said and say thank you to so many of you who took the time to respond to our transportation and commuting survey. We really appreciated that feedback. It was very helpful to us in thinking through what the priorities should be, and where do we most focus our efforts. So appreciate that. In thinking about the challenges that we need to address when it comes to transportation, there's a number of things that kind of are right high on that list. Obviously, improving public transportation. We definitely know, and we saw this in the survey, and there's been lots of research, that if we could improve the reliability and performance of the T, and also the frequency of service, definitely more people would be able to use our subways, buses, and commuter rail, and that would be a huge benefit to our region. Another obviously challenge is congestion on our roads, whether that's our highways or even our smaller town and city streets, and what are some of the strategies we can use to better manage and mitigate congestion. Third is back to the climate change discussion. Transportation is one of the major contributors to emissions. Along with our utilities and our building sector, it's a very significant contributor, and it also contributes to pollution. We see, certainly because closer to highways, we see higher rates of childhood asthma and other illnesses, poor air quality. So there's definitely very strong public health and environmental reasons to improve transportation. And then lastly, it's infrastructure. We've got a lot of infrastructure, roads, bridges, commuter rail stations, other public transit infrastructure that's old and that really needs a lot of investment. So those are all the things we want to tackle. The state Senate has been hard at work now for a really better part of the last year. We have a working group within the Senate that's been looking at all these issues, talking with experts and advocacy organizations, and I expect that we will be taking up legislation in the Senate and I believe in the House of Representatives as well in the next couple months that will look at a number of ways to tackle these issues and to make positive changes to our greater Boston, in fact our statewide transportation system.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Senator, and would like to take the opportunity also to extend an invitation to all of our viewers and any other transportation stakeholders from around our communities in the state to join us for a community conversation that we'll be hosting on March 11th at 6:30 p.m. at Malden High School. It's going to be a continuation of this conversation, talking about the needs for our transportation system, especially public transit, and also our priorities as we plan for the future of transportation in Massachusetts. So we're really excited that we're going to be joined by Chris Dempsey, the Director of Transportation for Massachusetts, which is a statewide advocacy group that does a lot of advocacy and education about the different needs in transportation policy in the state. And we're also going to be joined by Aaron Wortman, who's the president of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and also the town planner in the town of Stoneham in Senator Lewis's district. So we're really excited for that event. Definitely throw it on your calendar now, March 11th at 6:30 p.m. at Malden High School. We're really looking forward to joining everyone who can make it and continuing this conversation about transportation, which is so important.
Absolutely. Very excited for our next community conversation because I think, again, the topic of transportation is such an important issue. It's such a timely topic. So we really want to encourage folks to join us. Again, it was March 11th. It's a Wednesday, I believe.
That's correct.
6:30 p.m. At Malden High School. But again, everyone's welcome from all of our communities. And you'll be plenty of time to also ask questions of myself and the experts, and most importantly, share your feedback with us again as we prepare to hopefully take up and pass transportation legislation in the state legislature.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Senator, for taking the time today for another episode of Beacon Hill Update, and thank you to the viewers at home for joining us once again. It's always great to speak directly with you and let you know what's happening here on Beacon Hill, so thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you, everyone.